Hey guys, it's Aiden here again, making another video. So I've had a lot of views on my Psychosis and my DMT video, and there's been a few requests for a video about my recovery process after my psychosis. So I did go ahead and decide to record a video regarding that. It was nice for me to talk about it, but it also was refreshing that it wasn't something that was kind of hard for me to talk about. I feel pretty comfortable talking about it, but I did want to share it because I know that it'll probably be helpful for some people, and it was something that was requested, as I mentioned. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy the video. So the recovery part in a lot of ways is more difficult than the actual experience, because at least in my case, the experience itself was it was intense, but it wasn't that traumatizing because I was just in the moment and in the experience. I think it was more traumatizing for my loved ones to see me in that state and to see me in that sort of process that was happening. So the process to sort of come back to reality was a much harder process. So when I got brought back home from the hospital, I was still kind of in a semi-delusional state. There wasn't as much euphoria and things like that going on, but I still had a very sort of delusional worldview, and there was still a lot of metaphors and interpretations of things. So I guess I was still kind of psychotic at the time I went back to my parents' place. And there was a lot of ups and downs when I came back home. So a lot of very deep, dark depressions, not wanting to get out of bed, just feeling like I just didn't want to move at all. And it was thanks to my mother and my father for being there, and especially my mom helping me get out of bed and actually doing something. So I'd help her with taking care of the horses, or I'd help her with different things around the house to keep me going. It was pretty hard, honestly. And it took me a while to feel comfortable going out to public places. I felt very sensitive and vulnerable to different things. So I wasn't able to, because I was at university at the time. I didn't really feel comfortable going back till a few months later. I think it was 2 months after the event happened. And so I just felt like I needed to be supervised and guarded at all times. Not because I was gonna hurt anybody, but just because I felt vulnerable and insecure and fragile. Not so much insecure anxiety wise, but just very perceptive of other people's energies, and I just didn't want to get mixed in with that. So to have minimum amount of variables change was the best for me while I was sort of recovering from that process. So I've had 2 psychoses. I haven't talked about the second one, and maybe I'll talk about it at some point, but right now I'm not really comfortable talking about it. The first psychosis I had was a much longer process to recover from. It was much more intense, and it was very kind of a deep psychosis where I wasn't really familiar with the territory, and I didn't really know how to get myself back. I didn't really realize that it was out there. I just kind of, it's kind of hard to explain, because when you're in a delusional state, you don't know you're delusional. You just the things happen and they make sense to you, but to other people it doesn't make sense. And you try to explain it to to other people in a way that makes sense to you, but it still doesn't make sense to them. And so part of me recovering was being able to navigate understanding how to reality check myself, and to be hey, is this reality? Is this metaphor, or is this experience that I'm having right now, is this based on something that's real, or is this based on something that's constructed in my worldview? And I sort of had to be black and white for a little while to sort of ground myself. Now I realize there's kind of a gray area where there were some things that I was perceiving that were probably on some part true, but the interpretation of that may have been off. So the actual perception of it, like the actual feeling of it, might have had some validity. So it was kind of a difficult process. It took me a while. I would say it took me 2 to 3 years to fully recover, just from like the trauma of like emotional destabilization, and it brought up all the shit that I hadn't dealt with in a long time, and so I just had to work through a lot and really work on myself. Luckily, I had like a big support team to help me. So my parents were on board to help me. They've always been really supportive, and I had counselors and stuff like that to help me out too. So I did have support, but it took a long time to get back on my feet. And I was able to go to school, but I did stay at home and go to school for a little bit. So I had that sort of home base. And it wasn't until my I think it was either my junior year. So my break happened my first semester of my freshman year in college. And then it wasn't until my junior year, I believe, that I think maybe the end of my sophomore year, beginning of my junior year, that I started going to main campus, but I was still at home. So it was like 40 minutes away from home. And then senior year was when I finally left home again. So I lived on campus. So that's sort of, and that took a little bit of time to like reintegrate as well, and like feel comfortable being on my own. I felt pretty confident like being there, and I had a really cool roommate too, so it was fine. But it definitely took a while for me to get on my feet, and then it was difficult. And it's like, I think there's probably a lot of people out there who don't really feel like they can share their experiences with anybody, and they're probably like ashamed or embarrassed, or just like don't feel comfortable sharing their experience with other people, just because it's something that like most people don't understand. They just like, even if you try to explain it, if you haven't really been through experience, it's pretty difficult to comprehend. Maybe people who have done psychedelics might be able to understand a little bit better, because like when you're in a different state or a different operating in a different realm of perception, you might be able to understand why you might do certain things or behave in a certain way. But psychosis is definitely different from doing psychedelics, because psychedelics, eventually the chemical runs out. Psychosis depends like how long it'll last. It depends on the person. But it's a difficult experience. I mean, I don't wish it on anybody. I'm grateful for the experience I've had. I wouldn't like trade them away for anything. Like if I could have done it, if it could have been like a more gentle process, that would have been nice, but that's what happened to me. So there's no point in being, I don't know, regretful or shameful or anything like that, because it's just self-defeating. But let me know of your experiences. If you've had your experiences, let me know how your recovery went. Sometimes it's not easy to share those stories, so hopefully like by me sharing my story and sort of how challenging it was for me, then it makes you feel more comfortable and not alone, and know that it's not like it happens to pretty much not anybody, but there's people out there who have these experiences. So I hope that you were able to find a way to deal and integrate and move forward with your life. So all right, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to like or comment below. If you'd like to see more videos by me, check out my channel, Informal Inquiry. And as always, guys, make sure to seek your truth and to take time for yourself. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Bye for now.